segment of Expert Insights hosted by the Institute of Policy Studies. Today we have the pleasure of hosting Professor Robert Z. Lawrence, a Professor of International Trade and Investment at the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. Professor Lawrence, welcome to the Institute of Policy Studies. We were discussing recent trends in international trade and the future of international trade. One of the biggest current trends right now is the regionalization or the mega-regional trading blocks with the TPP, the TCIP and so on and so forth. What has prompted the movement towards these regional and mega-regional trading agreements?
I would say, on the one hand, there's a demand for deeper integration. It's coming partly from multinational firms and operators of supply chains who want reductions in the transactions costs of their doing business. This relates therefore to the need for common standards to secure their property rights with investor-state dispute settlement and to have more secure intellectual property rights. So that's the demand side. I think on the supply side, there are a number of countries who would like to attract multinational companies. And they realize that by changing their systems in order to provide lower transactions costs to global supply chains, they can attract those investments.
Thank you. And the paradox, however, is that domestically, particularly in the United States, politically there seems to be some opposition to agreements such as the TPP. For example, the main candidates for the presidential election oppose in different segments the TPP. How is this paradox working its way?
Well, not everyone agrees with what the multinational firms want. On the one hand, that we have Donald Trump. He believes that, or he says he believes, that companies should all be manufacturing in the United States. So he doesn't like the fact that these trade agreements are actually going to make it easier for some of the production to be offshored from the United States. So he's trying to keep production in the United States. I think Hillary Clinton objects to some of the specific terms of the agreement. In particular, she's mentioned that some countries manipulate their exchange rates. So currency manipulation is something she wants to have included. So she's been against this agreement, not on its basic principles, but on the specifics and the details.
One of the reasons why the TPP came about, particularly from the United States perspective, was its realignment to Asia, particularly trying to balance out China's influence. If the TPP were to fail within the United States, what would the US policy towards Asia be going forward?
Well, I think that's a very open question. Certainly Donald Trump has said some things that I think would upset a lot of Asians. He's, for instance, talked about having both South Korea and Japan have nuclear weapons. I don't know actually what US policies would be because the basic premise of TPP is, as you've said, a pivot towards Asia, a signal to Asian economies that America sees its future with them, and a desire for economic and broader interaction with Asian countries. And I think a rejection of the TPP would take America back to the drawing board and put it in a very weak position in Asia. And so the challenge for the next administration would be what they're going to replace TPP with. My suspicion would be that a Clinton administration would try to renegotiate TPP. In other words, we would still see some form of TPP, although the specifics might be different. With the Trump administration, I don't think anyone has the slightest idea. And the big concern is that he could be encouraging America to withdraw and become much more inward-looking. And that would mean much less engagement by the US in Asia, and in effect leave Asian economies like China and others to have to interact more on their own.
Beyond the United States, the most recent development has been Brexit. What impact do you think Brexit would have in terms of international trade going forward?
I think Brexit is a serious challenge, again, to this idea of mega regionals. I think specifically the negotiations between the United States and the European Union will become very, very difficult. The United Kingdom was a major proponent of freer trade with the US, and indeed, more generally, Europe has been encouraged to be more free trade by the British. And so Europe's going to lose that impulse. I think for the United Kingdom, its trade relationships are going to have to be reestablished in some new manner. And that's going to be very challenging for them. There's going to be a period of great uncertainty as firms will be unsure what it will mean to be based in the UK. Will it give them the same kind of access to the EU market as they might currently enjoy today? So I think Brexit is a serious source of new uncertainty for the global economy, and I think could damage the prospects for growth. Heavily in the United Kingdom, somewhat less in the EU, and somewhat at the global level.
Uncertainty seems to be the common theme that's running between the United States, the UK, and basically with the international trading system. Given this uncertainty, what scenarios do you think could play out in the future of international trade?
Well, we have very strong forces that are driving us towards integration. We have the lowering of transactions costs, we have the internet, we have digitization. All of these don't really know borders. And so that's a force that I think inevitably is going to lead nations to have to integrate more deeply with one another. But the road is not going to be smooth, and clearly we're going through a patch at the moment where there's a lot of political resistance. So for some period of time, when it comes to the United States, when it comes to the European Union, you could see a slowdown in their advancement towards more trade agreements.
Thank you very much, Professor Lawrence, and we hope to see you again at IPS quite soon.
It's a pleasure to visit with you.